A new week is upon us after another Bills win. The team stands at 3-0, and they are hosting a team that has not been to Buffalo, New York in quite a long time in the New Orleans Saints. And on tonight's episode, we will cover all of the most important details of this matchup, including how these teams stack up against one another in offense, defense, and special teams, and talk about the matchups that we think are going to be key for the Bills to secure another victory and end the month perfect 4-0. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning into this week's episode of Under Review. And without further ado, let's go.
Previous play will go under review.
Citizens of Earth, lend me your ears. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Under Review. My name is Joe DeRosa, and you can find me on Twitter /X at show_DeRosa. And you can see the tagline tonight is Buffa Joe. Folks, I'll be at that game on Sunday, and I am so freaking excited to be back in Buffalo, to be able to go see this team in person and get my final experience at Highmark Stadium before they close its doors for good and a new stadium opens up. It's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to the game. I have a lot of personal investment into this game, and I'll explain that a little later on the show. But before we continue on, I have to introduce my wonderful guest, someone who has been on this show a few times now, someone that has attended the draft with me when he was with our network, someone that I appreciate very dearly, and that is the Mr. John Helmkamp. John, welcome back. It is good to see your smiling, bearded face. My beard will never be as nice as yours, but I try my best, so I went with a backwards hat to commemorate you as well. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
I am good, man. I think that we might be slightly past a few appearances. I'm not sure. I think this has got to be 5 or 6, something like that. Enough to be I don't know, quasi regular, somewhat regular presence. I don't know, however you want to say it. But yeah, man, happy to be here. I'm stoked about it. Man, what a start for the Bills this year. A lot to talk about. We have the benefit of paying attention to and analyzing one of the best teams in the NFL, which gives us an ability to nitpick a team that's 3-0 and has scored over 30 points a game every game out. So it's a great start. And if you take the 30,000 foot view of it and take a step back, man, Bills are off to a scorching start this year with a lot to show for it.
About as good of a start as you could have with some bumps and bruises in the road, but this is a situation you'd love to be in. And if you told me this before the season started, I wouldn't have been shocked, but I also would have been extremely grateful because that implies you have 3 AFC wins, you beat the Baltimore Ravens in the rematch, and you also took on 2 division opponents and beat them both. It's a great spot to be in if you're Buffalo, and this upcoming game is a great way to close out September. Non-conference opponent, but one that, you feel just looking at the numbers for these two teams pretty good about facing. But any team is a tough task in the NFL, and I want to give the Saints credit where it's due on tonight's episode when we can. But before we get into the real specifics, offense, defense, special teams, I do just want to get a general overview of this matchup again. It is the first time that the Saints have been in Buffalo since 2017, where that wasn't fun. That wasn't fun at all. In fact, that was one of the worst games of the Sean McDermott era. They came in. I didn't even look up the score. I don't want to look up the score. You can't make me. But they steamrolled the Bills in that game just by, again, a brutal rushing attack of Mark Ingram and a young rookie Alvin Kamara paired with Drew Brees to game manage, where he really didn't even have to do much. It was ugly, really, really ugly. But then you go to the next matchup between the Saints on Thanksgiving Day just a few years ago, and the Bills get much needed revenge against what was a depleted Saints team. Now the Saints are marching back to Buffalo, and it's interesting to see them because one, it's a team you don't really get to see in Buffalo very often, but also because I don't really think it's a team that from 2021 to now has really put themselves in the greatest of positions where, like, you see some teams in the past come and they're like contenders when they used to be doormats. The Saints have been a team that's been in basically perpetual transition since Drew Brees retired. So, John, I flip it back to you just to ask about your general thoughts on this matchup. I mean, apart from obviously the details we're going to get into, but what are you most excited to see? I mean, what has really caught your interest about these two teams facing each other?
I don't know that I can just give an elevator speech on that. I mean, it's on one hand you have a team that should be one of the best teams in the NFL. On the other hand, you have a team that could potentially be vying for the number one overall pick in next year's draft. But anything can happen. And I think the Saints are kind of one of those teams where I'm not sure they're quite as bad as the perception of them. So I don't know. We're going to dig into it a little bit, but I don't want to just walk into this being like, oh, we're going to waltz to a 3 touchdown win here. And it's very possible that the Bills do. It's also very possible that the Saints are a little bit of a trap and that this becomes a little bit more than what a lot of people expect it to be.
Yeah, these types of games are ones I'll never sleep on. And it's the nervous fan in me, right? And I feel like a lot of people are this way where, the team could have not scored a single touchdown in 3 games. The team could be the absolute trending towards the worst team in NFL history, and I will still be uncomfortable. That's the way I am. I'm a nervous fan. I'm a superstitious fan. And I just sit here kind of like, when we face a team like this, I try to find the things that they're good at so I can almost like mentally prepare myself. Cause you know how it goes, John. Good team plays bad
Mhm.
team. Bad team has gasps of life in a game where like they go up by an early touchdown on a scripted drive, or hell, even it's 10-10 at halftime, kind of like the Titans game last year. And people are like, oh, yep. I knew it was going to show. I knew it was going to show once on here. I'm so
Come
glad
on.
you brought it. I don't have any seltzer on me right now. I have to get more, but I appreciate you paying homage to the night of
Oh
the
yeah.
Teen Bubblies. It is
Oh
it
yeah.
is always appreciated. But
The
um
bubbly tradition lives on, man. I always bring one.
you see, next time I get you on the show, I have to remember to go get a case, or at least just one like can if you can get those individually, just so I can be with you on this. I don't have a Sprite or
Is
anything. I'm
happening.
just drinking my obnoxiously large water bottle. But all this to say, oh man, I lost my train of thought. I feel like these types of matchups will always make me nervous because what you're playing is a team that has nothing to lose. It's a team
Right.
that's 0-3. Kellen Moore is a first year head coach. Spencer Rattler is a player that is still feeling himself out in the NFL. Maybe for in his case, everything to lose in the sense that Tyler Shuck, the second round pick, is behind him and he doesn't want to lose his job. But the team is just so lost in the current state of affairs right now that I feel like they don't really have as much urgency to be great. So why not go into Buffalo against a team that has a 15.5 point spread, which I'm sure they've seen, and give them your all? And that's always the thing that worries me is you can't be caught sleeping against teams like this. Cause like you just said, John, you look at the Saints' first 3 games, and we have to remember the first 2 games of the season for them were one score affairs. They were close games. They were playing tight, tough. And I feel like that gets glossed over with the record. And obviously, last week they play
Yeah.
Seattle. Seattle blows the doors off them. But if you watch that game back, and again, the Saints were not good in this game. I'm not trying to say that it was fluky or anything like that. It was kind of one of those games where it got out of hand so quickly because of some just insanely bad errors early on from their special teams and from penalties. There wasn't really much to take away from it after like the first quarter. Like the game was
Right.
28 to, I think it was 28-3 before halftime. Like you can't, no, it was actually 31-3 before halftime. You can't really walk away from anything from that. And a team that deals with that kind of loss isn't just going to like roll over and die the next week. They're going to want to come in here. They're going to want to punch you in the mouth. So for that reason, I don't sleep on them, but I know Allen and co have said they're not doing that either. They're not sleeping, and that's very reassuring to hear. So I want to get into the offense, John, and just starting with that. So talking about how these two teams stack up. We obviously know the Bills numbers at this point, but just to rehash, if we're going into just total EPA again or per pass, it is Buffalo Bills at 4th and the New Orleans Saints are sitting at 24th. And then when you talk about EPA for rushing, Buffalo Bills are number 1 in the NFL at a plus 0.19. The New Orleans Saints, if I scroll, are sitting at, oh, I lost it, 19th in the NFL. So it's below middle of the pack numbers for the Saints right now in terms of total offense. It is a unit that isn't completely lacking in talent. I mean, we got to
No.
remember the skill group for the Saints is still, I would actually call it solid, because Alvin Kamara might be older. He still has plenty of juice if you watch him. I mean, some of those outside zone runs that they had against Seattle, Kamara looked like himself. He looked
Mhm.
flashy. He looked fun. Chris Olave is healthy. He is still, in my opinion, one of the best young receivers in the NFL. Injuries have gotten the best of him, but when he can stay on the field, he is a consistent producer all over, especially downfield, and that poses a threat for a Bills secondary that is still finding itself. And Rashid Shaheed still exists. He's still a viable threat. He's coming off an ACL tear, but that's not someone you could sleep on. And Jawan Johnson, probably the most underrated tight end in the NFL, in my opinion. He is
Yep.
a receptions machine. He is a stick worker. He is someone that Spencer Rattler trusts immensely to get the ball to in quick situations. And this Saints offense will get the ball out quickly. That's what they pride themselves on. They are quite literally the fastest team in the league on a plays per drive basis. So you have to be ready for this team to really try and not give you any chances to get into specific types of coverages, to disguise anything. They're going to come out firing. And the Bills, in the case of some of the weaknesses that they have on their defense, which we'll talk about, there are matchups that the Saints could potentially exploit. But again, they also beat themselves up a lot. It is the most
Right.
penalized team in the NFL. It is a team that I think, because of how often they get in their own way, the Bills are probably comfortable letting them, have these long drives and try to have as many plays as possible. So, John, I turn it back to you. Give me your thoughts on really the Saints offense this season, what you know, what you like, what you don't like, and how it pertains to this matchup.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me because everyone's dogging on Spencer Rattler, and I don't think he's played bad football. He only has one turnover. He's completed over 70% of his passes in the last two games ever since week one. Yeah, he only has four touchdowns with the one interception, and their point per game as a total offense is fourth worst in the NFL. EPA per dropback, he ranks 20th. So, like, kind of middle of the pack, just below middle of the pack. Not horrible. Like, he's not playing like an absolute dumpster fire of a quarterback. There is some promise there. I think the game is slowing down a little bit for him, which I know is like really cliche to talk about. Well, the game slows down, but it takes time, especially at the quarterback position. And I do think he is more confident of where he's going with the ball. I think his decision making is a lot better. I think he's not putting it in harm's way as much. I think he's making more anticipatory throws. I saw some good stuff when I kind of watched some clips of him. But then the offense just kind of like stalls. There's a penalty that knocks him back, and then they struggle because it's 3rd and 14 all of a sudden. Or there's a drop pass somewhere and it just throws everything out of them. They just can't seem to put it all together yet, where it's like consistent and moving in the right direction, and they're not having the self-inflicted wounds of the penalties. Like, they're doing that at such a high rate that it's really killing a lot of the opportunities that they have to be an average to mildly above average offense, which I think is within the range of outcomes based on how Rattler is playing and the skill players that they have on that team. And I know that maybe I'm giving them a little bit too much credit, but I don't know. I see a quarterback that's making decent decisions and is getting the ball out fast, and that they have playmakers that are really good after the catch. And it's I have more respect for the Saints offense than I do for a lot of other NFL offenses. Like, I have
Hmm.
way more respect for the Saints and what they potentially pose as a threat than I do for, like, I don't know, the Giants, the Titans, the Jaguars, like the other teams that are down there towards the bottom of the NFL rankings right now. The Saints just feel like a team where it's like, dude, if you could just stop with the penalties,
Yeah.
you have the possibility of keeping yourself close in some games. Now, listen, the Bills should be on paper a way better team. This is a team that they should beat by, 10 plus points. That's what should happen. But if this is a game where they don't have the penalties, where the offense does string some stuff together, we know that the Bills' third down defense was a huge issue against the Saints. So if
Yeah.
they let, or against, I'm sorry, against the Dolphins, not against the Saints, but if they let the Saints hang around on third down, if they let that happen, okay, this might be a little bit more competitive than what it might originally look like on paper.
Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked at all if this is a bit more of a tight game, at least to start out. I think, again, when you see the record and the last score, people are expecting this to be just a complete bar murder for the Bills. And listen, it can be, right?
Yeah.
This is a show,
Yeah.
we're a Bills show. I don't want to kind of sit here with like a defeatist mindset. Not saying you are, but like people might say this and be like, oh my God, it's the Saints. Why are you guys freaking out? No.
Right.
I just do this because I feel like it's kind of just pointless to just bag on the other team nonstop and not point out the things they do well and what could give
Right.
the Bills problems, because it's something to keep an eye out for. So also too, if you're a fan who would jump off the ledge because you're down at halftime to the Saints, like this is a way to quell some of your worry, because I do think the Bills would probably still win this game. But the thing that you mentioned that I really love is about Spencer Rattler, because I think, again, the numbers aren't amazing, right? Like 4 touchdowns to 1 pick. I have him tallied just looking at the stats. He is currently per EPA per dropbacks sitting at 20th in the NFL. So
Right.
it's not the greatest. They're a team that I think when you watch them extensively, they can't finish drives. That's been their Achilles heel. And I think the biggest problem is their offensive line, mainly the penalties. It is just for what Kellen Moore, I think, is doing for Spencer Rattler, which is, again, trying to keep things simple for him by playing an up-tempo game where the looks can't get too insane, where the pressure can't really hit home as frequently, and you could just get that ball out as quick as you can to try and sustain. I think there is a flip side to that that negatively impacts Rattler, because at some point, teams might not feel the need to really sell out for any sort of really anything creative from your offense. Like there is play action and there's bootlegs and they do try to ball fake a lot, but a lot of teams are just going to match them with zone coverage and try to attack that way, because if we could take the deep halves of the field away and just keep everything in front of us, that should be enough to beat you. And it's proven successful because the Saints aren't finishing drives. They can get down the field, and a Sean McDermott defense, John, that's exactly what he sets himself up for. They're going to ask him to dink and dunk and come down and kick field goals. And if they do that, that's probably going to make Sean McDermott ecstatic, because he feels that that's just pretty much the recipe that other teams have employed against the Saints and have had success with, is the fact that they just beat themselves way more often in these penalties, in miscues, and the increased play rate leading to, again, execution errors, a false start because you weren't set in time because the snap got out so fast, a drop pass, an errant throw from Rattler, because he has been all right, but there have been some overthrows and misses, again, from that up-tempo style of play where maybe he doesn't get set as quickly. Maybe that sense of urgency doesn't always make him comfortable in the pocket. So I definitely think it is an offense you should respect. They can move the ball, but I do think that there is an exploit in just how many plays they have in every drive in a game. And I think the Bills will invite that from them and try to get it, because at this point, it really is a great way to kind of, I guess, inspire your defense by, the bend don't break mentality being in action against a team that kind of always falls victim to that. So it's an interesting matchup. And just to point out some specific players again, I mean, I would say, in my opinion, the player that I think I have the most fear for is Alvin Kamara, and this isn't a shot at Johnson or Chris Olave, who I think are great, or Rashid Shaheed. It's really, to me, if you are setting yourselves up, and again, this is like famous last words, because the biggest pain point I called out in the episode last week, and you called it out, has been third down defense, third and long, which again, the Bills are generating third and longs, and it's so immensely frustrating. I have to find the Eric Turner thread on it, but I'll do that in a second, because he called out some stats today where it's just like making you want to like pull your hair out, because the Bills, to paraphrase everything he said, still end up in these situations, like these third and long situations consistently, but are not getting off the field at a high enough rate. And it's like, come on, like we have to improve this. And this is the team that I think you could do that against. But like shutting down Alvin Kamara, I think, is your path to getting into that spot. Just get off the field on third down. If you could do that, this game should be handedly won for you. But again, that seems to be a tall ask, and I'll turn it back to you, John.
Yeah, it's just infuriating, because it's like, okay, first down, terrific. Second down, gain of 1. Third and 8, they rip off a 15-yard play. It's like, what just happened? Time and time and time again. But the thing that is annoying to me is that the thing that the Dolphins did the best against the Bills was get the ball out really fast to their playmakers to mitigate any sort of pass rush. And then the defense wasn't able to rally to those playmakers to stop them short of the sticks. It happened time and time again, especially that drive right before halftime with 5 or 6 first downs that they converted on third down. time and time again. It's like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10. They're not throwing the ball past the sticks. They're throwing screens to
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill or just short
Bubble
little
screens.
under routes. Yeah, just little quick things that the quarterback doesn't really have to think or read. It's just get the ball, throw the ball, and then let the playmaker go. And the defense could not stop them short of the sticks. Now, I'm not saying that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you know, aren't a lot better than Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, but those are two very athletic wide receivers as well that are really
Yeah.
quick, that are really good after the catch. So I worry that the things that the Saints have been doing all season so far are the things that the Bills struggle the most with. That just
Yeah.
poses a small little like don't really love that type of thought from me. It's still you should still be able to get off the field on 3rd down. We know that the penalties are there. We know there's a lot of things. You said shut down Alvin Kamara. The Saints have passed the ball over 62% of the time this season, 5th most in the NFL. So they're throwing the ball. They're not relying on Alvin Kamara either. And I see this being a very similar defensive game plan to last week. Like you just
Yeah.
said, dare them to throw it in front of you and then try to rely on the fact that you are capable of coming up with a turnover or that you're able to shut them down when it gets to the red zone. I just feel like it's going to be very annoying to watch again. And
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
the way that it feels. And Rattler's not putting the ball in harm's way. He's not making
No.
horrible decisions. They're not asking him to go through 3 or 4 reads a lot of the time. It's a lot of this quick stuff that the Bills have been struggling to shut down. And
Yeah.
that to me is just a little concerning.
Yeah.
Not like,
No,
oh my God, we're going to lose to the Saints, but
right.
from a schematic matchup standpoint, I don't like that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's the game plan. I think they're going to try and keep everything in front of them. The reason why I emphasize Kamara is because I think it's just like, again, it's poking another tire, with a nail. It's keeping them from getting into favorable situations where when they go up tempo, they don't have long field to work with. I think when you get them in a 3rd and 8, you can get them to hold the ball. You can get them to turn the ball over. You can get them to throw an errant ball. I just feel like taking Kamara out of the plan puts way more pressure on Rattler to play a upscale perfect passing game, even with a lot of tempo, to a point where I think that sets you up, or at least sets the Saints up to make a mistake more easily, especially again when we talk about the holding penalties, the false starts, the things that really pressure this Saints offensive line. That puts pressure on them just from the situation. So I think that's why I stress it, but I do agree that the game plan is going to be, again, defend the sticks, keep it in front of you. And I think the advantage that the Bills would have this week relative to last week, the speed component of the Saints, well, yes, Rashid Shaheed has speed, and yes, Chris Olave has speed. It's not Jalen Waddle or Malik Washington or Devon A. Chan, or like it's not the same
It's not a
level of
track
speed
team like
threats.
Miami is.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And I found that some of the 3rd down play calls where they, kind of put their corners on an island to match these receivers wasn't bad in theory. It was just execution because Trey White is not as fast as Jalen Waddle. He's got more years on him, and its speed was never really his game. I think that can work a little more successfully this week. And I think some of those 3rd down conversions that you saw Miami hit last week, I don't think it'll be the same situation this week. I think the Bills are going to be able to stall drives out. And again, we're pointing out something that we think the Saints could do well against the Bills defense. But in my opinion, I still think that the Bills defense is going to be able to outlast the Saints passing attack if they can't prove that they can attack you vertically. And I don't think the Bills are going to give them any chance to try that, too high shell, or if you want to go with a buzz, or if you want to play cover 3 sky. Like I think they're going to give you all of those looks. They're going to rotate them post snap if they get the time to. Spencer Rattler called it out at the podium that, they do a great job of disguising. You have to be ready for it. So he knows it's coming, but it's a matter of just making him guess and hoping he guesses wrong. And I just want to bring this up real fast because I found Eric's thread. So the Bills are averaging right now a 3rd down and distance of 3rd and 8.2 yards. But 30% of those plays end up in a 1st down or a touchdown, which is ranked 27th in the NFL. So, I mean, that's just not good enough. That is something they have to clean up. But I can say that I feel better about that this upcoming week, that they can clean it up and improve that stat a little bit. But just prepare yourself. There's going to be a 3rd and 9 that they convert. I'm going to be there in person to watch it, and I'm going to pull my hair out of my seat. But look, a win, if they get a win, that's all I care about. So, I mean, John, any final thoughts on offense? Anything you think we haven't covered yet that you want to get in on?
Yeah, thanks for giving me that chance. The one thing that I do want to bring up, last week, the defensive line really struggled to make an impact in terms of getting pressure to the quarterback. I worry about that being another issue because of that speed to release that Miami has. They play with this just such like frantic energy and hurry up offense and try to keep you from being able to get complicated, get stunts, get, substitutions into the game, stuff like that. So I worry again that it's going to be a little bit of a no-show from the pass rush. And that bothers me because it would be, the first quarter of the season basically where pass rush would be a major concern. So it's something that I'm watching for. I want the defense to find a way to impact Rattler when they're doing this hurry up offense. They've got to find ways to create pressure. And it's going to be just, you got to win your matchup. Like, you're not going to be able to scheme it a lot of the time against this offense that moves so quickly. Like, you're not going to be able to call in a bunch of stunts and stuff like that. Like, you just got to beat your guy. Like, just win. Like, make someone look bad on the offensive line and make a play. And I'm mostly looking at Greg Rousseau, who just got paid and has
Yep.
been really absent here on the pass rush. It's like, dude, you're supposed to be one of our cornerstone like players for this championship window on the defensive line for the next 4 to 5 years. We're being extended a whole slew of guys. Him being one of them. You got to make a play. Like, get after the quarterback when it matters. So I'm really just looking for that this game. I want to see a lot more of it.
Yeah, valid. I think Rousseau, I think a big part of Rousseau in the last game and really the D line was just, again, while it was the longest time to throw for Tua in quite a while, the game plan did still involve kind of like, again, waiting for the coverage, as Bruce pointed out, waiting for the coverage, getting the ball out, but also they did still throw pretty quickly in certain moments of that game. So it's always hard for me with pass rush when you play Miami because they don't want to keep that ball in their hands. And just looking at this upcoming matchup, just to make it even more annoying, Spencer Rattler is 18th in the league in amount or pressure percentage. So he's taking out, where is this? I always have a hard time reading next gen stats charts, but 33.6% of the time he's being pressured. So good for 18th in the league. And as far as total sacks taken, he is sitting at 19th in the league. He's tied with two other quarterbacks for 5. To me, that's just, again, an indicator of what Kellen Moore is doing, which is getting the ball out quickly. And I think for fans that want to see 5 sacks in this game, I think you might see more pressure if the Bills take a large lead and the Saints are trying to compensate, and maybe he holds the ball a little bit longer, especially if they end up in third and longs. But I think for the first half of this game, that's the game plan. It's going to look very similar to, again, like something the Titans employed last year before the second half, where it's, we don't want to get beat. We want to be able to diagnose. We want to be able to win this game. We're not letting this ball stay in Spencer's hands. We're trying to keep it as simple as possible. It's going to get out quickly. So I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's a 5-sack game for the Bills. I hope they win 40-0. But that's kind of what I'm envisioning this game is going to look like. Is, again, just quick hitter, quick hitter, quick hitter. Try to take the top off every now and then, but really just try to beat them underneath and earn our shots when we can get them and see if we can. Because if they can't, then it's going to be a hard world for them on Sunday afternoon. But I want to pivot over to defense now, John. So again, we've talked about it a little bit. The defense for, well, I'm sure both teams is immensely frustrating, but just going for total EPA per play for each defense, if I reverse it, because it shows me positives, the Saints are currently sitting at 26th in the NFL, and the Bills are currently sitting at 20th overall. When you look at EPA per or against the pass, the New Orleans Saints are one of the league's worst at 29th in the NFL, and the current metric is sitting at plus 0.17, which is just brutal to sit in. I mean, the Bills aren't really much better. When you look at EPA against the run, they are 23rd, or I'm sorry, I have it backwards. See, this always drives me nuts. Every time you click a filter on this, John, it flips it around and like it messes you up. The Saints rushing defense is actually 10th in the league in EPA per play. What I will say is that if you look at it by each week, they're 17th before they played last week, which makes me think that they faced a lot of kind of game out of hand running from Seattle and wound up being able to contain it because it was kind of a telegraphed run. And the first 2 weeks, they were a little bit worse. I think there are bodies in their defensive line that can wreak havoc, but I do think the Bills should have success. The only thing that worries me is if Spencer Brown is not good to go. Now, mind you, we're recording this on a Thursday night. Friday's practice report is not out yet. By the time this video comes out, I cannot confirm if Spencer Brown's calf will be good enough to go where he can practice. But if Spencer Brown cannot go in this game, John, I'll ask you this question first before we get into, a deeper defensive dive. Are you worried about the Bills' rushing attack, or do you think it can sustain even without him for one game?
I think that it'll be fine. Listen, I love Spencer Brown, but this is such a varied rushing attack. It's so multiple in their looks and in their personnel packaging and all the different things that they do. They don't ask these offensive linemen to do a lot on their own. It's the whole of the part working together, and especially when you think about having, you know, my baby Jackson Hawes in there as well, and you think about all the different like looks and the packages that they bring in. I think that they'll be fine scheming the run game. I'm not terribly worried about it. Obviously, it's a blow, and I would prefer that he's out there, but I think that it'll still be totally sufficient. I think that they'll be fine on the ground.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, we got to remember the last time Spencer Brown was out, the rushing offense didn't really miss that much of a beat. Again, Spencer Brown is an immensely important part of this offensive line. I'm not trying to downplay what a loss means, especially, not just for rushing offense, but passing protection as well. But I really like the opportunity for a guy like RVD or even Tylen Grable to step in and play that role quite well. I would prefer Grable just because, again, I think Grable has, apart from the size, the athleticism to sustain. And I think he's gotten work with the ones in camp. He's someone I feel like Aaron Cromer kind of personally picked, just given where they picked him in the draft. It's a player that I would really like to see fill in that spot for one game as kind of like a tryout for maybe a path forward in a few years, not anytime soon, hopefully, where maybe he has to man a starting spot. But it's not one that overly concerns me because if you got your other four guys, this is the kind of offensive line that I feel like is coached up well, but from Aaron Cromer, where these guys are prepared if they have to step in, but also kind of like some of its parts, where if you have four of the five, I think they're going to kind of raise the level of play you'll see from a guy like Grable or RVD. So I just wanted to float that to you. But John, now just getting into the defensive side, I mean, your thoughts on the Saints defense against the Bills offense and then vice versa, Bills defense, Saints offense we just talked about. How are you feeling about this matchup for this Bills offense facing a Saints defense that is very clearly struggling against the pass and in two games wasn't awful, but wasn't top tier defending the run as well?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's Bills offense versus Saints defense is the biggest advantage in the game. And this is where we have the benefit of having Josh Allen. We have the benefit of a very patient offensive approach that can nickel and dime you all the way down the field while also going for a full dollar when they want to. And I think that that is once again going to be the game plan. We haven't talked since last week's game. Actually, we haven't talked in quite a while. Have we talked since the season started? Have I been on
No.
since the season?
No.
Okay, yeah.
No,
So
it's been a few
first time
weeks.
what has stood out to me the most about this offense and Josh Allen as a whole is that it looks like he's capable of doing basically whatever he wants on the field right now. He's so in command of the scheme and the play calling and defenses that he just never looks like he's confused or out of sorts. He has an answer for everything. And to me, it's a scary thing. And I saw I think it was Colin Coward who I don't like Colin Coward and agree with him very often, but every once in a while he says something that really does have a lot of truth to it. And he was talking about Josh Allen basically like being a Ferrari, but not playing with all the horsepower, like having the ability to control it, unlike your Brett Favres and your John Elways and stuff like that were just all gas all the time to the point where you had all the turnovers. It's like that's Josh 3 years ago, but
Yeah.
now he's developing this ability to rein it back, and he doesn't have to put on the cape every single play, and he is just so in command where it's like he's playing with like this cerebral patience and understanding of your Tom Brady's, Drew Brees's, Peyton Manning's, while still having the physical traits of a John Elway, of a Brett Favre rocket launcher for an arm. So it's a really scary thing for the rest of the NFL right now. And with that, and with all the looks that they give you and with the patience and the high percentage completions and all of this stuff that is happening um, with this offense, I just feel like that's where they're going to be able to blow this game open. The offense should
Yeah.
be able to go down and get points every time they touch the ball. Now, inevitably they won't. There will be something that comes up and they have to punt or whatever, but they will have the opportunity to go hang points on the board every time they get it. What's really interesting about the New Orleans defense to me is that they're actually fairly, like you said, decent against the run, but the stats are super skewed by last week's game where the Saints were so out of it that the Seahawks were just like, here, we're just going to run a dive and, get stopped for 2 yards and stuff like that. But what really stands out to me, they hold opposing offenses to 5.1 yards per play, which is right around the middle of the pack. It ranks 16th. But in terms of point per play, they rank 27th in the NFL. So it's like they're giving up the explosives, they're giving up the
Yeah.
big chunk plays more. And coming out of the Miami game last week, I would have loved to see Joe Brady call up more shots. I would have loved to see him push it down the field, not because you have to throw the ball downfield 40 yards every single play, but when the secondary is a weakness, like get yourself a big lead. Like I would have just loved to see him play with the lead more.
Yeah.
Take the shots, maybe put more points on the board, make Miami go more one dimensional, put more pressure on the quarterback to make the right decisions. And that is exactly the thought process I'm in when it comes to the Saints. Put the pressure on Spencer Rattler. Like Alvin
Yeah.
Kamara, we know who Alvin Kamara is. You want to take him out of the ground game? Go hang 14 points on him in the first 9 minutes. Like
Yeah.
let's just put the points on the board so that Rattler has all the weight on his shoulders and he has to be forced into throwing the ball more and maybe pushing it down the field more than he wants to. And then the turnovers happen and it becomes a snowball effect. So for me, it's there for the taking. And I schematically want to see it. I want to see Joe Brady dial up some plays to let Josh go get some touchdowns that are, of the big yardage variety instead of it just being in tight to the goal line.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they had those opportunities in the Miami game, but I definitely think that game plan was ultra conservative, not from the perspective of like neutering or hindering or handcuffing Josh, but just because they wanted to protect the ball.
Mhm.
Drain clock, not put Miami in a situation where they're playing a close game. Ultimately, they had some stall drives. Miami was able to keep it close, so it didn't exactly go to plan. But if they had that if they actually, didn't stall out or didn't miss that field goal or made one more touchdown. It felt like the Bills were just going to play ahead the whole time and just dink and dunk, control time of possession, what they like to do, right? We see it
Yeah.
in so many of their games. They're not a team that goes for the jugular right away. They're methodical. They want to really wear you down and punch you out and just get you to the point where you're banged up and bruised and not able to move because you've just been beaten badly by just a series of 1,000 punches. And I think that this game is no different. But what I will say is, if you do see the Saints become a bit more feisty when it comes to how they're defending the run, again, they're not void of talent. There are still members of that interior defensive line that I think can cause disruption. We got to remember too, guys like Justin Reed are on that defense. Demario Davis is in that defense. Like this is not a team that has nobody. But what I think it is a team of inexperienced players paired with a coach who is inheriting the room for the first time and trying to make things work. And it hasn't gelled yet, and it takes time to do so. And I think a hostile environment where communication is going to be more difficult because of how loud it gets will probably affect the secondary. I think that this Bills team is going to play their brand of football. They're going to try and run it on them. They're going to try and be more methodical in the passing. I think Josh is going to be very cognizant of pre to post snap diagnosing and try to be a more mature quarterback and taking the as they described it on the film room, taking the profit, what's given to him. But it wouldn't shock me at all if this is the game where you do see Josh air it a little bit more just because of the matchup. Because again, I keep saying again. There's matchups in the secondary, players in the secondary that I think you can take advantage of. And despite the talent that the Saints have, you got to know these guys are susceptible to certain double moves or there's tendencies in them that you can exploit. And I think a guy like Dalton Kincaid might be poised to have a very large game. And I think probably the player that I've been watching each week with the most like joy because of how free he seems now, because of the 13 personnel the Bills are running, the blocking from Killdozer and Dawson Knox, freeing him to be more of a pure receiver with favorable matchups. This feels like a Kincaid takeover game to me, where even if he is matched up with a guy like Davis or if he's matched up with like a box safety, I think he's going to get open. I think he's going to have success. And ultimately, I think the Bills can in this game go downfield if they want to, but they're going to try and earn their shots the same way the Saints do. I think the difference in this game, though, is I have much more faith in the Bills going with a long drive and actually completing it consistently and not wearing themselves out to a point where like you'd wonder if they're going to put up anything more than a field goal every single drive. And I think that as far as pass rush and everything goes, the Saints are not a pressure minded team. I think they are very basic in how much they decide to blitz. I pulled it up. They are currently 16th in blitz rate in the NFL. So again, it's not nothing, but it's not substantial, but they are one of the worst teams in pressure rate. So it's a team that doesn't consistently get home enough. And if you're talking about the Saints primarily playing zone coverage to try and mask their blemishes in the secondary and keeping their corners away from man and trying to keep things basic with a too high structure, I think that this team is going to have, at least the Bills are going to have plenty of space to operate with. And I think that might be the downfall for the Saints, is just not being aggressive enough. But again, like when you're facing Josh Allen, it's hard to be aggressive because he beats the blitz, and it's hard to just sit back in zone because he picks zone apart too. And with the way he's playing right now, John, like your entire point speaks volumes to what Josh is now, which I think is just the most mature version of him we've ever seen. And in my opinion, right now, this individual 3-week stretch, I think is the best football I've ever seen from Josh Allen. And again, like Josh has had the flashy explosives. He's had the downfield plays. He's done everything and more, and we love it. But it's the pre to post snap that you're seeing from Josh Allen right now and how he's manipulating plays at the line of scrimmage, how he's calling things out and setting his protections correctly, how he's not forcing the issue because he doesn't have to force the issue and is just capitalizing on the system of offense that is trying to run the ball and be efficient and being just as efficient with the decisions he's making, taking the screen if it's there, taking the pass to the flat instead of the double covered tight end that might have a single step, but it's still a risky throw. Risk adverse, but still effective. It's the perfect balance for Josh Allen right now. It's the best of both worlds. It's what we've wanted to see for years from him. And John, my final point on Allen relative to the defense, but in general, I think why this matters so much to me isn't just because the Bills are winning games. It isn't just because the Bills offense is good. It's because when I think about Josh Allen, like 6 years from now, when he's not a spring chicken and his legs aren't as fast, his feet aren't moving as quickly, the bruises hurt a little bit more. This feels like a sustainable way for him to play football. And honestly, man, this player gets clowned. People demonize him because of the team he plays for. But Dak Prescott was a player that I feel like people had a lot of doubt for. And he is quarterbacking at such an incredibly high level right now where everyone's like, he rules. I mean, he's playing a style of football that is MVP level. He's just playing on a bad team that's letting him down consistently, but he's absolutely amazing, precise, making the right decisions, beating pressure, just looking really good. Allen is at that point right now where he's starting to just mature into a true signal caller more than an athlete. And now pair with the athleticism, like you're getting just, again, one of the most efficient, dangerous quarterbacks in the NFL. And I love to see every bit of it. John, back to you. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that because you're absolutely right. Josh Allen, in terms of what he did early in his career, did not look like sustainable quarterback play in the NFL. It was amazing and the flashes are there, but you worry if this is someone that's just relying upon the brawn and the physicality and the athleticism and I'm going to run you over all the time. Is that someone that's going to be able to one, hit the absolute ceiling, but two, have a long career? And I would have questioned significantly as to whether or not that was possible. Now you're looking at a quarterback, like you just said, who is cerebral, who understands, who knows how to read defenses and put coverage or his protection where it needs to be and all of that. And when it does start to fade athletically for him, this is still going to be a very, very, very dangerous quarterback. So I think that Josh Allen has developed into a quarterback that is going to have a very long NFL career, knock on wood, and one that is going to give the Bills many, many, many chances at making a title run. And hopefully it's this year.
Yeah, I just had to go knock on some wood. Sorry. There was a
There you go.
door just a little ways over there, so I had to roll
You
to
got
it.
it.
My apologies. Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think it's so reassuring. And all I can hope for is because I think Joe Brady gets a head coaching job this offseason with the Raiders app, and even last year, that when he leaves and he's on to, brighter horizons, the next offensive coordinator just replicates the style. Because I think what the Bills have just structurally is just not great. Only not great. Sorry, not just great, but it's also, again, something that I think they could play with for the next decade and still be
Yep.
just as good as they are now. And I love every bit of it. So I think in this upcoming matchup, man, it's going to be Saints playing in the zone. They're going to try to send forward. They might disguise their pressures a little bit, maybe try to drop a linebacker in. I do think you could say there's a little bit of a concern with right tackle if Spencer Brown isn't good to go for the pass pro component and whether they can generate pressure off the right side. But also, too, I mean, you still have Cam Jordan, who, even in his old age, is still able to produce. Granderson has been a very viable pass rushing threat for them. Not having Chase Young, I think, is a very unfortunate blow for the Saints because last year he was a very high caliber and one of the top generators of pressure in the NFL. Despite the sack numbers, he was getting into the pocket and creating disruption. Not having him, I think, is a big blow for the Saints defensive line this season. And whenever he comes back, I think will be a plus. So not having him in this game is a nice thing to kind of, I guess, exploit if you want to talk about true drops and deep drops for Josh Allen and the pass pro holding up. So I think it's just picking apart the zone. I don't know if the Saints try to up their blitz rate to try and compensate in any sort of way, but if they don't, I think Josh will have a good day with the ball in his hands. And I think a player like Kincaid or even Keon Coleman, if we're talking about getting into the red zone more consistently, I think they can be successful. I'm actually really, really pumped to watch Keon Coleman this week because I think in this case, when we're talking about zone defense and the soft spots, Keon has done a nice job in these 3 games of recognizing where he's got to hit and sit and be able to kind of just be available for Josh Allen without putting himself too much into a defender spot or in harm's way. I think that this is going to be a great game for him to kind of continue on with that. So I'm looking forward to watching him as well. And I don't really have too much more to add about the Saints defense. It's a mix of vets and youth, but it's definitely still gelling. I mean, they're on, you have Justin Reed in that defensive backfield, but you lose Matthew to retirement. Then your starter in Blackman gets hurt. So now you have Jonas Senker filling in, and Senker is a player that you and I talked about in the past, like for the Bills, potentially as a safety player we like, but he's a rookie, and safety is a very difficult position in the NFL. And guys like Keon Coleman or even Khalil Shakir, if you get him going up the seam, or Josh Palmer and his route deception, that could be a hard test for a safety. So I do think the Bills, I don't think they're going to stray away from running the ball, but I really do think downfield shots are coming in this game to some degree, and I'm excited to see them if they do. And being there in person, would love to see Josh hit on a few of them. That'd be nice. I'd like to stand up and cheer, beer in hand. I hope so, John. I hope so. So that's all I got on defense. I think final before we pivot over to special teams before we close out.
Don't think so. I think I'm good.
All right. So special teams. So if you happen to watch last week's game against the Seattle Seahawks, the first thing you would notice besides the penalties is their special teams unit was god awful, and god awful for miscues. But I also did not like them in coverage at all. I thought there were bad angles to the Seahawks returners. I'm not a fan of Kendre Miller as a returner. I just don't think he
Yeah,
had
what
this.
is that choice?
I don't know if they had a choice. I don't know if it was because they just didn't have someone in the room that they trusted. Someone on the Saints side would be able to answer that question a lot better than me. But I am not a fan of Kendre Miller being a returner. Just doesn't have the burst. Like in my eyes, watching him return, not slow, because NFL slow is like what? What would you call NFL slow for a 4-4 or not a 4-4, a 40-yard dash? But like it didn't pose any sort of threat. And I feel like the Saints special teams unit is going to be an area that this Bills, well, really, returning team, I think is going to exploit heavily. Again, I really like Codrington as a returner. I know he had the fumble last week, but I'm still a fan of his. I think he's due to break out any week. I think this could be the week he does, or at the very least, just generates really good starting field position. The Bills special teams unit hasn't been that great this year in starting field position, but the Saints have been worse. I mean, they one of the bottom units in the league in that regard, and their punt coverage team has just not looked good. Their punting team has not looked good. There's a lot, again, it's a team that with a new coach, there's a lot of miscues, but watching them, you can see what's holding them back. It's these self-inflicted wounds. I would imagine being in a hostile environment in Western New York might not bode well for them. Stranger things have happened. Any week could be the week you clean it up, but that's definitely an area of weakness for the Saints team that I think they need to fix. And this is just not the matchup you want to be dealing with those struggles in, and something I will be watching for. But John, what do you think? What have you noticed? I mean, anything you want to call out specifically?
I don't really think there's a lot more to say than what you just said. It's been a big weakness. They gave up what, one special teams touchdown last week. I think
It was the
Horton got
Torrey
one.
Horton return touchdown, but
Yeah,
there was also a really long return. I forgot the
right.
player number 83. And then of course the block punt.
Yeah, I mean, just bad across the board. Now, I know that the Bills haven't been great in their own coverage of special teams this year either. Like, you've seen other teams get some pretty good chunk plays against them. But like you said, if you're the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen and an offensive wagon going, the last thing that the other team wants is to spot Josh Allen with good field position, but that is going to be a potential reality this weekend for the Saints special teams unit. They just really struggle with coverage and containing on returns. I'd love to see Josh just get some short fields to work with. Let's just, get the ball out to the 40 to, midfield, maybe rip off a long one and run it all the way back. But it's another area where I think the Bills can absolutely exploit the Saints
Yeah.
this coming weekend.
So I realized when I started the segment, I didn't have the page loaded, so I looked it up. So the Bills special teams unit has not been great so far in terms of DVOA. They're sitting at 24th. Do you know where the Saints are sitting?
Dead last.
It's dead last at a minus
Yeah.
20.1%. It's really bad. And again, we talked, in fairness to them, we did talk a bit about how the inflated numbers for their rushing EPA per play defensively a bit higher because of that matchup against the Seahawks. And the Seahawks matchup probably tanked them. But again,
Yeah.
it's still not a spot you want to be in. It's as bad as it gets for them on the special teams unit. And you got to remember with this team, like I said, it's a mix of youth, it's a mix of vets, but youth on special teams, I mean, that's got to be coached up, and that takes time as well to get into place. When you're talking about, again, proper angles you're taking for return people, getting off your blocks consistently, your fifth in rotation defensive end that you got as a undrafted free agent who now has to try and learn how to shed blocks at the pro level against seasoned special teams players, that all matters. And it makes a huge difference for a team. And I think, like, when we talk about new coaching changes and teams that are like 0-3 in the NFL, like, it's not an end all be all, because a team like the Jets, who's sitting at 0-3, and a team like the Titans, actually, these two teams are both top 5 in special teams DVOA, but it is a factor into what can lead a team to kind of take that, I guess if you want to call it that, punch in the face of a terrible ranking, and end up in a situation where it can probably make games get out of hand within the first few quarters. So keep an eye out for the Saints special teams coverage. And if that's something the Bills try to exploit this week, it's a unit that has really struggled. I don't think this is the week they prove it exponentially. Maybe they look a little bit better, but to go from 32nd to first in a week against this team, even with our special teams unit being 24th in the NFL, it's not one that I think bodes terribly well for them, but we will have to see. But I don't really have much else to add. John, anything else you want to bring up while we are on the airwaves currently? Did we miss anything? I feel like I don't know if we missed anything.
James Cook is a top blank RB in the NFL right now.
Ooh, top 5.
Give me your number.
Right now.
5?
And I'll take this
I'd say
moment,
3.
actually. I'm going to take this moment. Sorry, I put my water
Take
down. I
it.
have to stop picking it up when I'm about to talk. To apologize to James Cook, as I was someone who said, I will pay him, but up to a certain point. And my certain point was around like $12 million max. And lo and behold, it's his contract.
Hey.
So it actually ended up working out. But
Yeah, we had
said,
that conversation last spring, and we were both right at like 12. We were good with 12.
Like, it
and that's where
wasn't
he
that I
ends up.
wouldn't have paid James Cook. It's that I had a set amount, because I felt that despite my like for James Cook as a player, what he has brought to the offense, there were limitations. And that was part of the reason why in certain situations on passing downs, they would have to take him off the field. And I thought because of his snap share being not terribly far away from what Ray Davis was bringing to the offense, that this isn't a reason to pay him Saquon Barkley money, Jonathan Taylor money. And I still held true on the belief that that contract shouldn't have exceeded that much money. But if you were telling me that the pace James Cook is on right now is how he would finish the season, I would run at the idea to pay him $15 million or more. He is playing unbelievably right now. And again, it's not just like byproduct of the O-line. And don't get me wrong, offensive line matters a ton with running the football. We all know this. I am an Ashton Genty fantasy haver in 3 dynasty leagues. Trust me, I know how bad run blocking can completely thwart a very good running back. I am also
I've got it worse. I have him in a redraft league. So there.
Oh, yeah. Redraft rookies is so tricky. I did that a few years ago with Bijan Robinson, and that was like his first year where he was still good, but like, again, same problem, bad run blocking.
Yeah.
So I want to stress good run blocking matters. It's good to have. Totally get it. But James Cook isn't just playing behind a good O-line and benefiting. He himself is making tremendous cuts on the field. His field vision has been extremely good. The run against the Jets is the best James Cook run I've ever seen. And it's not just because, oh, he did the cool cut, but you have to understand, like, your peripheral vision in real time and split second moments as a running back to see 4 defenders crossing your face or getting in range where they can make a play on you, to be able to pivot out of their way and generate that touchdown when it should have just been a first down gain is unbelievable. His vision, his poise, his patience, his contact balance, his ability to still generate power at the goal line if he needs to get through, his ability to maintain his balance and make great plays like the touchdown. I believe it was against Miami where it was similar to that Chiefs game where he's brought down at the goal line and still gets the ball across while maintaining his knee, keeping his knee off of the ground. These things are just, it's the development of James Cook that we've seen that, with the contract they have him at now, it's beginning to look like a bargain. And I'm extremely happy to see it. And, we talked about Saints rushing EPA on defense and how it's been good. But I think James Cook is the type of back where if you're getting any push from this offensive line, it doesn't really matter. He's going to get his punches in. I mean, this team has run the ball well with him against some of the best fronts in the NFL in the playoffs last year. I don't think this is going to be any different. And I have to just publicly apologize to James Cook for doubting that you could play above $12 million. You are playing like a 15 million, even more running back right now. And it's a cog in the Bills machine. We're not this efficient and we're not getting to this level without him. And I say that as someone who just lauded Josh Allen. He's been exceptional. So I gotta eat crow.
Outside of Josh Allen, there's no one else that is as important to this offense than James Cook. He has been everything and more. The efficiency, the touchdown rate, the ability to take a small play and break it into a large one. I mean, James Cook has just been the absolute truth, and it is beautiful to see. So, James Cook, we love you. James Cook to the moon.
James Cook to the moon. I love you, James Cook. There is one player, since we did our matchup, and I feel like we don't really have much else to talk about. Let's just use these final few minutes to talk about one specific player that I feel like deserves time on the airwaves. Can we talk about Jackson Hawes?
You're goddamn right we can.
Okay. Because and you know what's funny is like I talk about him on the show every week, but like, oh my God, I'm just, oh man, I'm so happy. Like, I'm just happy that this is working out. Now, again, like I'm very grounded in reality about what like receiving tight end Jackson Hawes looks like. And it was awesome. Yeah. It was awesome to see the touchdown. Don't get me wrong. And I don't
care if he never catches another pass, Joe. Right. I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter.
He's just unbelievable. Like, we're not talking about a blocking tight end that's like, okay, he's going up against corners and mauling them, but like he gets destroyed against edge rushers and he'll lose his reps. It's going to happen in the NFL. But he sizes up and plays with such power against even like edge setters and linebackers and guys that should be giving him more trouble. He just looks like a 10-year blocking vet akin to like your Lee Smiths of the world, which I know he's often compared to. But and I don't even mean this in like an exaggerative way because I love the player. Everyone knows I do. I think he has been a top 5 component as far as what makes this offense successful. He is that important because you got to remember too, he's the key. And I talked about this with Bruce last week, and Anthony just did an entire episode on him. But like, he's a cog in the machine of this offense. Sure, the receiving chops are there. Sure, but you got to think about what his presence on the line is doing for a guy like Dalton Kincaid, who is also having, in my opinion, right now his best season. I mean, Kincaid looks like he's not only playing like a bit more like poised as a receiver and healthy, he's playing free. Like, there's a confidence in his game when you watch him now. When you see him catch a pass, whether it's for a touchdown like last week, a first down. There's a physicality he's playing with, but also just like a bit of a swagger and bravado. And I really think that, Kincaid, I was worried about. I thought he could have developed even if Jackson Hawes wasn't here. Maybe he does take that step. But I think having that shirred blocking guy in your room that's just laying the hammer down, and you've heard Bill's offensive linemen talk about how he just fires them up. Like, I think that presence is firing up the rest of this tight end room to a point where they're all playing with their heads on fire, and you're seeing the best ball from all of them. Even Dawson Knox, who hasn't really done much in the receiving game so far, is blocking his ass off. Jackson Hawes blocking his ass off. And Kincaid blocking his ass off against more favorable matchups because of Hawes, but also catching and playing like the tight end you drafted him to be. I'm just so happy. I love this player to a point, John, that like when we go to Buffalo this weekend, we're not far away from one of the stores. I might try to see if there's Hawes jerseys. I might see if there's a Hawes jersey. I will look for one. If there is a Hawes jersey, I might pull the trigger because I really love this player right now. It's 3 games, about to be 4. I'm so excited about him in his future. I love Jackson. So I just had to.
We gushed about it after the draft. We talked about it multiple times throughout the offseason in terms of what a difference maker he can be, and it has proved to 100% be that. Here's a tweet that I saw from our friend Yards Per Pass in the Miami game last week. Run splits for James Cook with and without Hawes on the field against Miami. With Hawes on the field, 14 attempts, 92 yards and a touchdown, 6.57 yard per carry. With Hawes not on the field, 5 attempts for 16 yards. The difference that Hawes makes in the run game is just so beautiful. It's like everything, and it's difficult because I loved seeing Alec Anderson on the field as the 6th offensive lineman, but he's basically rendered it useless because he gives you everything that Anderson does in those blocking schemes while still being, an actual eligible receiver that kind of needs to be respected as opposed to just being an offensive lineman. So it's fascinating, man, but he is great. And I really feel like you said about the tone setting, about what he does for the offense, about the other guys in the room, everything. This is a team as a whole that for years has loved to play a little bit nasty. Like the offensive line gets going. The more that you're handing the ball off behind them and they're getting push and they're opening up 5-6 yards of play, the more the offensive line, you can see them start to get a little swagger and they're like, do it, run it again, run it again, run the ball again. And now with Hawes out there, he brings that same type of energy and just the nastiness factor of wanting to punish somebody into the ground or into the bench. And it just feeds, like the whole offense feeds on it. And he's just been wonderful. I love it.
Yeah.
I've been talking about Jackson Hawes pancake blocks since April. And now he's here and it is beautiful. And I hope that we see a just absolute nasty block this weekend.
Yep. And in terms of total plays, or I should say play rate out of 13 personnel, just to read some stats from Sumer Sports. Awesome website, by the way. If you haven't used it, I recommend it because they have some really cool advanced analytics on here. 6th in the NFL in terms of rate out of 13 personnel. In terms of overall EPA, they are 2nd in the league at 9.12, just behind the Baltimore Ravens. EPA per pass in 13 personnel, they are currently sitting at 4th in the NFL. Sorry. Again, I'm bad at reading charts in real time. I should have written this down, but oh well. And then EPA per rush, they're 5th in the NFL. They are using 13 personnel, one of the highest in the league, and they're having success doing it. And again, that is not an accident. And you brought up, again, an amazing point about Alec Anderson. Because again, I love the 6OL package. I don't think they should totally abandon it. And I think that it does have purpose, especially because you run 6OL with Jackson Hawes next to Alec Anderson. I mean, that'd be very, very fun. I want more.
What they should do? What they should do is they should run the 6 offensive line packages and put Jackson Hawes as a fullback.
Oh my God. You know what they
Line
should
him
do?
up.
They should just put 11 Jackson Hawes on the field. That's what they should do. that you never lose a game. But
Buffalo Hawes.
Buffalo Hawes, man.
Hawes.
He is bringing something to this offense, like the lack of predictability because they can run out of those 13 personnel looks, and the fact that now, because you've unlocked Dalton Kincaid, 13 personnel kind of almost becomes like a 12, because if you have Kincaid just purely doing receiving work, then like,
Right.
and he's good at doing the receiving work, then that's great. But because they run and pass out of it like so often, but it's like even splits, it's just such a dangerous tool to have in your arsenal. And he's been a huge boost. And just seeing these numbers just fills my heart with joy. Because again, the modern NFL, the physical rushing attack, the ability to just wear defenses down and hurt people, he could do that for you. So I love it.
Yep.
I'm so happy to see it. I mean, I don't have anything else to add. I just wanted to gush over Jackson Hawes for like an extra half hour on the show. But John, I think we covered everything about this matchup. Again, offense, defense, special teams. It's a Saints team that I don't think is just going to go away quietly after a blowout, but the numbers don't really back them up in a lot of ways, and they're a team that's just still trying to find it. I think the Bills should win. I won't say will, because I will never put absolutes out there, even though that was an absolute. You see what I did there? But no, I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it. I'm just excited for this game. I hope the Bills can come out with a big W, because it would be really nice to just have an easy win. Again, I'm so excited to watch it in person and also eat a lot of food in Buffalo. But you, my friend, are always a tremendous guest. I appreciate the heck out of you, and your insight is always welcomed. It is always a ton of fun to talk to you. I appreciate you being a safe space for me to gush over blocking tight ends. And I want you to tell the good people what's going on in your world, where they could find you, where they could follow you.
Yeah, at John Helmkamp right there on the platform formerly known as Twitter. Been doing some podcasting every week with Built in Buffalo, talking just ball on Tuesday. A lot of previews and recaps and all that kind of stuff, and getting some stuff up on the website too. Already looking ahead to next year's NFL draft class because I'm a sicko. So yes, we are very focused on the Buffalo Bills. But if you want to just have half an eye to the future in terms of what's potentially coming in case we need, I don't know, a one tech or a linebacker or a safety or a corner, then follow me and we can talk about it.
Yes. Yeah, you'll learn a lot about college prospects from John. John, you and my buddy Jarek are probably my two most like go-to people when it comes to anything college ball this year. I've been keeping up with it and a lot of the top tier prospects, but I love just the film clip exchanges. I've been like, Jarek has put me onto a bunch of linebackers. You've been putting me out to a bunch of D linemen and receivers, and I love the mix. I'm already excited for the draft. Like, shout out to both of you guys. But I got to say this, like, you guys really should be following John, because college ball is like you will learn a ton about anyone in the class you might not have been familiar with prior if you follow John. So please do that. Give yourself the opportunity to see more of his work. It speaks for itself. He's a tremendous person and a tremendous creator. So thank you, John. I appreciate the heck out of you. And for me, I'm here every single week pre-recording these episodes because commuting sucks and it takes a long time to get home, and it's a little harder to do live shows now, even though I just did one last week, and I will do another one the next time we have Thursday Night Football. But the show is still here. Cover One's YouTube channel. If you're a fan of the episode, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Feel free to hit that like button. Likes are greatly appreciated. It helps the channel out, not just myself. It helps all of our creators out. And if you want to help us out even more so, check the description of this video. There's a link to sign up for the One Pass. Signing up for the One Pass gets you awesome perks, including our newest shirt that we partner with 26 Shirts to create, as well as access to our premium Discord that has channels for every single Bills fan to enjoy and engage with each other in. It's a lot of fun to be a part of it. Our insiders are amazing people, and you can too be an amazing person if you just sign up in that link below for just $60 a year. It's well worth your time, and it helps our network out tremendously. Gives us access to all of the resources that we use on a day-to-day basis to create all of the content on our network where we can talk positively about Jackson Hawes. Closing the loop on that one, folks. I appreciate the heck out of each and every single one of you. If you are watching us on YouTube, thank you so much. If you are listening on our audio platforms and enjoying the sounds, the soothing sound of my nasally voice and John's handsome, silky smooth, buttery voice, we appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. We are going to say, enjoy the rest of your day. This video will be dropping on Friday, so enjoy the rest of your Friday. Let's hope for a Buffalo Bills win. And as always, friends, go Bills. We will see you next week.